Elizabeth Taylor left a sealed letter with strict instructions: do not open until 10 years after my death. When her lawyers opened it in 2021, what they found inside changed everything. March 23, 2021. Exactly 10 years after Elizabeth Taylor's death. In the mahogany-paneled offices of Sterling, Whitmore and Associates in Beverly Hills, senior partner Jonathan Sterling held a cream-colored envelope that had remained sealed for a decade. The envelope was thick, substantial, with Elizabeth Taylor's distinctive handwriting across the front, to be opened only on March 23, 2021. Not before. Not after. For 10 years, this letter had sat in the law firm's most secure vault, following Elizabeth's final instructions to the letter. She had been adamant about the timing: 10 years, not 9, not 11. 10 years exactly. Today was the day, and Jonathan Sterling was about to discover why Elizabeth Taylor had needed a decade to pass before the world could know what she had written in her final message. Present in the room were Elizabeth's closest surviving friends, her remaining family members, and representatives from the various charities that had benefited from her estate. They expected perhaps a touching farewell, some final words of wisdom, maybe the location of some hidden memento. What they were about to discover would shatter everything they thought they knew about Elizabeth Taylor's life and death. Jonathan carefully opened the envelope with a silver letter opener, the same one Elizabeth had used to open her fan mail for decades. Inside was not one letter, but several documents. The first was handwritten on Elizabeth's personal stationery, dated March 15, 2011, just 8 days before her death. My dearest friends and family, the letter began in Elizabeth's careful script: if you are reading this, I have been dead for exactly 10 years, and I can finally tell you the truth about why I died. The room fell silent as Jonathan continued reading. Elizabeth's next words sent chills through everyone present. I was murdered. And I know exactly who killed me and why they waited so long to do it. But Elizabeth's shocking revelation was only the beginning of what would become the most explosive posthumous confession in Hollywood history. The letter continued with clinical precision, as if Elizabeth had been documenting evidence rather than writing a farewell. For the past 15 years, I have been slowly poisoned by someone I trusted completely. Someone who had access to my food, my medication, my most private moments. Someone who made sure my death would look natural and inevitable. Elizabeth explained that she had discovered the murder plot 6 months before her death, but had been powerless to stop it or seek help without putting others in danger. Instead, she had spent her final months gathering evidence and documenting everything she knew about her approaching murder. I am writing this letter because I cannot go to the police, I cannot trust the FBI, and I cannot even trust some members of my own family. The person trying to kill me has connections that reach into every institution I might turn to for help. Elizabeth revealed that her killer was not some stranger or obsessed fan, but someone from her inner circle who had been planning her death for over a decade, waiting for the perfect opportunity when her murder would be attributed to natural causes. Dr. Patricia Morrison has been my personal physician for 12 years, Elizabeth wrote. She is also the woman who has been systematically destroying my organs with carefully administered toxins disguised as life-saving medications. The letter revealed that Dr. Morrison had been injecting Elizabeth with slow-acting poisons during routine medical visits, using Elizabeth's trust and her genuine health problems as cover for a methodical murder that would take years to complete. Dr. Morrison convinced me that my heart failure was a result of my previous health problems and my age, Elizabeth continued. What she didn't tell me was that she had been weakening my heart deliberately with drugs that are undetectable in standard autopsies. Elizabeth's letter included detailed documentation of every injection, every medication, every treatment that Dr. Morrison had administered over the past 5 years. She had been secretly photographing the syringes, recording the dates and times of treatments, even saving samples of the medications in a hidden safe. I discovered her plan by accident, Elizabeth wrote. 6 months ago, I overheard a phone conversation between Dr. Morrison and someone she called the director. She was reporting on my condition and asking for permission to accelerate the timeline. That's when I realized I wasn't a patient, I was a target. But Elizabeth's letter revealed something even more shocking: she wasn't Dr. Morrison's first victim. Dr. Morrison has killed at least 6 other celebrities over the past 20 years, Elizabeth wrote. She specializes in making murder look like natural death from age or existing health conditions. She is a professional assassin who uses her medical license as the perfect cover. Elizabeth's investigation had uncovered a network of corrupt physicians who were being hired to eliminate celebrities, politicians, and wealthy individuals whose deaths would benefit certain parties financially or politically. Dr. Morrison was just one member of a larger conspiracy. I have spent the last 6 months investigating Dr. Morrison and the organization she works for, Elizabeth wrote. What I discovered is a systematic murder-for-hire operation that has been operating in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. for decades. Elizabeth's letter included names, dates, and detailed descriptions of how the medical murder network operated. She had traced connections between Dr. Morrison and the deaths of several high-profile figures whose deaths had been attributed to natural causes or accidents. Rock Hudson, Michael Jackson, Anna Nicole Smith, and dozens of others were all patients of doctors connected to this network, Elizabeth revealed. Their deaths were not coincidences, they were executions carried out by people who took an oath to preserve life. But Elizabeth's most devastating revelation was about why she had been targeted for murder in the first place. I was killed because I discovered something about my mother's death that certain people could not allow me to make public, Elizabeth wrote. Sarah Taylor did not die of natural causes in 1994. She was murdered by the same network that is now killing me. Elizabeth revealed that her investigation into Dr. Morrison had led her to discover that her mother had been killed to prevent her from revealing secrets about Elizabeth's childhood and early career in Hollywood. Sarah Taylor had been planning to write a tell-all memoir that would have exposed powerful people who had exploited Elizabeth when she was a child star. My mother's book would have destroyed careers and sent people to prison, Elizabeth wrote. She had documented evidence of abuse, exploitation, and criminal behavior by studio executives, directors, and other adults who had access to child actors in the 1940s and 1950s. Elizabeth's letter revealed that Sarah Taylor had been murdered just weeks before she was scheduled to meet with publishers about her memoir. The book manuscript had disappeared after Sarah's death, and Elizabeth had spent years trying to locate it without success. I finally found my mother's manuscript last year, Elizabeth wrote. It was being kept in Dr. Morrison's private safe, along with evidence of other murders she had committed. That's when I realized that Dr. Morrison hadn't just been hired to kill me, she had been assigned to my case 17 years ago to monitor me and ensure I never discovered the truth about my mother's death. Elizabeth explained that Dr. Morrison had been positioned as her physician specifically to keep track of her investigation into Sarah's death and to eliminate her if she got too close to the truth. Dr. Morrison has been reporting on my activities, my conversations, my investigations to her employers for nearly 2 decades, Elizabeth wrote. Every time I made progress in uncovering the truth about my mother's murder, Dr. Morrison would create some medical crisis that would distract me and slow down my investigation. But Elizabeth's letter revealed that she had finally outsmarted her would-be killer by pretending to abandon her investigation while secretly gathering evidence against the entire murder network. For the past year, I have been pretending to be too sick and too confused to continue investigating my mother's death, Elizabeth wrote. I let Dr. Morrison believe that her poisons were working and that I was becoming too cognitively impaired to be a threat. Elizabeth had used her apparent decline to lower Dr. Morrison's guard and gain access to information that would have been impossible to obtain if the doctor had known Elizabeth was still mentally sharp and actively investigating. While Dr. Morrison thought she was successfully destroying my mind and body, I was actually documenting everything she was doing and building a case against her and her associates, Elizabeth revealed. Elizabeth's letter included detailed instructions for accessing a hidden safe in her Bel Air mansion that contained all the evidence she had gathered: photographs, recorded conversations, financial records, and copies of communications between Dr. Morrison and her employers. Everything you need to expose this murder network is hidden behind the false wall in my study, Elizabeth wrote. The safe combination is the date of my first Academy Award nomination, March 15, 57. But Elizabeth's final revelation was the most shocking of all. She had known exactly when she would be murdered and had chosen not to prevent it. I could have stopped Dr. Morrison from killing me, Elizabeth wrote. I could have fired her, exposed her, or simply refused her treatments. But I realized that my death was the only way to gather enough evidence to bring down the entire network. Elizabeth explained that she had spent her final months deliberately gathering evidence that could only be obtained if she remained in Dr. Morrison's care and allowed the murder plot to proceed. My death will look natural to everyone except the people who killed me, Elizabeth wrote. They will believe they succeeded in silencing me forever. But my death is actually their downfall, because I have documented everything they did to me and everyone else they have killed. Elizabeth's letter revealed that she had been working secretly with a private investigator and a federal prosecutor who were building a case against the medical murder network. Her death was the final piece of evidence they needed to move forward with arrests and prosecutions. By the time you read this letter, the investigation I helped start will have had 10 years to develop, Elizabeth wrote. The evidence I gathered in my final months has been used to identify and prosecute the people who killed me, my mother, and dozens of other victims. Elizabeth explained that the 10-year delay in opening her letter was crucial because it had taken that long for law enforcement to safely build cases against such powerful and well-connected criminals. Dr. Morrison and her associates had to believe they had gotten away with my murder, Elizabeth wrote. Only by thinking they were safe could they be caught in the act of committing other crimes that would provide additional evidence against them. Elizabeth's letter revealed that her cooperation with federal investigators had been part of a larger operation to expose corruption in the medical profession and bring down a network that had been committing murder for profit for decades. I may not have lived to see justice done, Elizabeth wrote, but my death will not be in vain if it prevents other innocent people from being murdered by those they trust to heal them. The letter concluded with Elizabeth's final message to her loved ones and her fans around the world. I have lived an extraordinary life, full of love and adventure and experiences that most people could never imagine. But the most important thing I ever did was use my death to expose the evil that exists in places where people are most vulnerable, in hospitals, in doctors' offices, in the care of people who have taken oaths to protect life. Elizabeth's final words were a warning and a promise: trust, but verify. Question everything. And remember that sometimes the people who claim to be helping you are actually the ones who mean you the most harm. I hope my death serves as a reminder that no one, no matter how famous or powerful, is immune to evil, but that even in death, we can still fight for justice and truth. The sealed letter concluded with instructions for Elizabeth's estate to fund a foundation dedicated to investigating suspicious deaths in the medical community and providing resources for families who suspected their loved ones had been murdered by healthcare professionals. Let my death be the beginning of justice, not the end of it, Elizabeth wrote. And let the world know that Elizabeth Taylor's final performance was exposing the truth about how she died. The revelation of Elizabeth's sealed letter made international headlines and led to the reopening of hundreds of suspicious death cases involving patients of doctors connected to Dr. Morrison's network. Several physicians were arrested and charged with murder, and the medical murder conspiracy that Elizabeth had died exposing was finally brought to light. Elizabeth Taylor had orchestrated her own death investigation from beyond the grave, using her final months to gather evidence that would bring justice not just for herself, but for all the victims of a network that had been killing with medical impunity for decades. 10 years after her death, Elizabeth Taylor's greatest performance wasn't on a movie screen. It was exposing the truth about her own murder and ensuring that her killers would face justice, even if she couldn't live to see it happen. Her sealed letter proved that even in death, Elizabeth Taylor remained one step ahead of those who thought they could silence her forever. The woman who had captivated the world with her beauty and talent had used her final act to save lives and expose evil, proving that her greatest role was always being Elizabeth Taylor. A woman who refused to be defeated, even by death itself.